Satnam. I'm Lillian Savoy with Awakened Change, and I am here with my Kundalini Yoga teacher, Yogi Mehtab, and Vedic astrologer and master Gong teacher around the world, and used to be a major Gong collector. And I was a privilege to have his hands when I chose my gongs. Welcome, Yogi Mehtab. I'm so excited that you're here.
Lillian, me too. I love talking about astrology and sound healing and yoga. And I know you love all these things yourself. So we're going to have a good time today. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. So thank you. So where do we begin? I think we should begin in astrology, don't you?
Well, that's a good place to start. I'll give you a little history about how I came to all this so people know my background a little bit. Like many people, I got into astrology, well, in my 20s, perhaps. I was searching for who am I? What's my life about? And I was looking for all kind of answers. And astrology was one of them. I started studying astrology at a fairly young age, about 50 years ago. And then yoga too. About the same time, I also got into Kundalini Yoga back in 1973, 74. And then I was listening to the gong in my yoga classes back then. I love the sound of the gong for meditation. I kind of got not an early start, but a long history of being associated with yoga, Kundalini Yoga particularly, astrology, Western astrology at first, kind of most people know about. And then again, working with music and sound to create meditation and healing. So that went on for a while, as you might imagine, going through my processes of learning all this from disciplines. About 25 or 30 years ago, I really got into what is called Vedic astrology. Now, Vedic comes from the word Veda, the ancient scriptures in India, of which yoga is one of them. Ayurveda is also one of the Vedas. It is a knowledge system that began thousands of years ago for people who are trying to understand more about what this life is about, what this path in life is about. Why are we here? How can we accomplish our soul's mission? And in my discovery with yoga and sound and astrology, I found that Vedic astrology was very accurate in my experience, much more so than what we traditionally see in our Western world as astrology. So I hope to maybe awaken people to possibilities that they might have a different sun sign than they think they have. Yeah, I know it's really strange. We're going to talk about
So strange.
Yeah, I know. In your chart, for example, you in your Western astrology, your sun sign was Leo, right?
Yes.
And you're very Leonine. You have
Very Leo.
you have the main. You're somewhat of a performer. You don't mind being having attention. That's Leonine. But in reality, in Vedic astrology, your sun sign is Cancer, and that is that really strong nurturing quality you have. That strong sense of intuition, sensitivity, almost psychic, so to speak. That Cancer energy of that nature. So it gives people a chance to maybe have a different view of who they are. When you say, "Oh, well, I was this, but maybe I'm this too," and you don't have to not be who you think who you want to be, because there's a lot of ways to. For example, in your chart, I did for you, you have 3 planets in Leo. So even if your sun's not in Leo, you still have a lot of Leonine energy around you. And why is that important? Well, we know as we move through life, everybody has a different mission, a different thing they came to experience. And what astrology is good at doing is to help us understand why we're here. And not only why are we here, but how do we maximize, how do we realize our talents? How do we seize our opportunities in this life? How do we recognize what it is we're here to do this year, next year, and for our life purpose? So it's really great for people who are exploring a spiritual path. Yoga, I say, sometimes allows us to transform as we understand what life is about. Astrology gives us a little bit of a timeline or a schedule, and also a reminder of who we chose to be. And I think that's a really important thing to consider. My understanding of yoga and astrology and some forms of spirituality is that the soul is infinite wisdom, knows that it has to have a certain life, a certain curriculum to fully fulfill its potentiality. And so the soul, before it comes back to this plane, to the earth, before it chooses the parents, yes, that's right. Guess what? You chose your parents.
That's right.
Yeah.
I
Good.
love that though. Whenever you're like, oh, I'm so irritated, or oh, why is this? Or oh my gosh, why is this life? I always say, well, I mean, you pick them. We picked them.
Your children. Well, yeah, I say your children picked you, and so that's a great thing to think about too. If you're so, you must be an amazing person that the children picked you to help them realize their purpose. Now,
Yes.
it has different forms. Sometimes it's a hard lesson to learn. You
Yeah.
may have a difficult parent, difficult child, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's also a part of the learning process, isn't it? Learning the lessons we're here to learn. So going
Don't
back
you
to,
also think it makes us more forgiving too when we realize, like, when I don't know if you were, I think I learned that in like my first spiritual path, but it was like as soon as you realize you pick your parents,
Mhm.
it kind of takes the blame and the shame blame game off of the table, don't you think?
Right. It does. You're not a victim anymore.
Right.
You're proactive. You chose this experience, and nor are your parents to blame. And now, we always I wish my parents were like this, or whatever. We always have our dreams, our fantasies, and our comparisons with other lives, other people. But
Right.
guess what? You couldn't have done better. Now, it takes a while for many of us to work through that. It really does.
Yeah,
And
it does.
and people say, well, why would I have a childhood that was maybe full of trauma? Why would I have a child? Why would I have a mother or father who didn't appreciate me or didn't
Right.
accept me? You think, you can't think about that. Was it because I wasn't worthy of it? No, my way I tell people sometimes about that, like why is your parent maybe not how perfect you want them to be, but why are they like that? And one of the big lessons I think we all have to learn in our lives is that you cannot depend on anyone else in your life, even your mother, for your acceptance, your approval, or your appreciation. This all comes from within you. Self-acceptance, self-appreciation, self-approval. If you're waiting for someone else to do that to you, you're waiting for the wrong reasons. And, I think in an early time in your life, if you've had a difficult childhood, in some ways, you are an old soul. You said, let's get on with this. Give me the hard stuff. I want to do it now.
Yeah, I think that that aligns pretty much with a lot of the things that I've realized with my parents and with me getting older and then having older children, and seeing all of this. It's just come full circle. It's just like, oh, my parents are just human. Oh, I am just human. We make mistakes. We are not perfect. Frankly, we make a lot of mistakes and it is trial by fire.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
no
amen.
one teaches you this shit. No one.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, most of us don't get to that point until we've got to a certain age, or we've had certain experiences, or we've had certain good karmas in the past that allow us to have that opportunity of what we call partial enlightenment or understanding. And that's why I do like astrology, because even if we're still struggling, astrology is here to say, let's confirm who you are. And that's a powerful process too. And people say, I always wanted to be a teacher. And I always wanted to be a teacher. I can see the chart. Say, you're a chart. You're a great teacher in your birth chart. And you think, I'm confirming that. And then they may say, I'm thinking about learning this and actually teaching it. And say, I'm going to affirm that because that's what's in your chart. So a lot of times what astrology does, it doesn't necessarily predict. It reminds us of who we are, it confirms who we are, it accepts who we are, and then it allows you to have the affirmation of being who you are, who you need to become. So if you like change, you need a map. Otherwise you just try to change everything, hoping something works.
Yeah, you throw it all at the
I'll
wall.
try this, I'll try that. But ultimately you have to find out what it was that you wanted to do. Like what you want to be when you grow up, what do you want to be as you keep growing up? And not only that, the timing of it. And I think that's the important thing about astrology. It's not just about your birth chart, like, oh, you're born, you have a Leo sun. In your case, let me see, you have a Capricorn moon. It's not just that, it's also now at this age and stage of your life in astrology, because the planets keep moving around, and as they move around, they affect different areas of your life. So that's what astrology helps us. Like, okay, this time in this month or this year, your career is really highlighted for great change. Now, if you've been thinking that, it's true. So get on it, do it. Ask for that raise, change your career, buckle down, because you're in a great time for career success. Or sometimes you might say, oh, this is a really challenging time around relationships. So what does that mean? Well, you have to do the hard work, or you have to maybe say, maybe this is done. But not because it's hard, but maybe you just have to maybe stop something. Transformation is also ending things too. So sometimes you have to, I think, have support when it's time to end something like a career or a relationship, just because the timing is right for change. You don't necessarily have to end it, but you certainly have to transform it. Like you look at a chart and you say, oh, I don't say this to people up front, but you see a chart. Oftentimes you'll see like a possibility of a divorce in someone's chart. Now, or separation. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave the person or have to divorce. It means that you have to completely change how you are with that person. You have to transform it. So sometimes you just change your relationship to your relationship. That's what's being asked for. Not that you leave it or blow it off and say it's too hard or I don't like this anymore. No, you have to change it somehow. Sometimes ending is a choice, but there are other options, I think, because really what it's about transformation. It's about the change that you want to bring to your life. Same with a career. It's like either it's time to like end that career and transform it, or it's time to really relate to it so differently it makes you able to fulfill your life's purpose. Like it's not all about your life. It's not all about your career. It's your career. It's like over here in this little area, and then who you are is over here. So you change that relationship with your career.
So one thing that, well, I don't know if you know this about me. I wanted to tell you, but astrology is what got me started on my spiritual path
Oh,
of doing psychic readings and energy work.
oh. And why is that? What was it about astrology that gave you such the sense of empowerment or excitement? What was it?
You know, to wake up and I would read the daily horoscope that they printed in the newspaper, which I
Oh,
went to go look at my mom's newspaper just a month ago, and there's no more horoscopes in the newspaper.
yeah, I think everyone goes online now, you know. The newspapers, I guess no one reads the newspaper, but
It's so weird. Anyway, I was
weird.
like, I can't believe that was like my favorite thing to do. And then that carried with me to college because you are starting to soul search and you are starting to ask who you are. What am I supposed to, what's my purpose in this life? Who am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to help people? And
Right.
so to see that little daily dose of, you know, inspiration, hope, or maybe just like you said, awareness of who we are, because do we actually pick our birth time and our date along with our parents?
Well, you have to, because otherwise they wouldn't be your parents. So there's so many different theories and ways to look at it. Some people say that the soul doesn't even enter into the fetus or the body until the fourth month. So,
Okay.
so the first 3 or 4 months, there's women to give birth, and they're going to give birth at a certain time and place, and the soul's like, oh, they're going to give birth at 10:33 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm coming in, boom, and the soul enters in at that point in time. Now,
Okay.
whether that's real, what that means, but that's why why is time so important that your birth time? Because people say I want a reading, but I don't know when I was born. It's like, oh, well, you can find out, and a really good astrologer can actually sometimes determine approximately when you were born by asking questions. I can say like, when did you start your second career, or how many children do you have? And those answers can sort of zone in on like maybe this is about the time you were born. But if you think about anything when something starts, let's just say a trip. You're going to go on a trip, and let's just say it's just going to be across town. You're getting your car, you're going to go across town and have an experience. If you start 5 minutes later, 5 minutes sooner, it's going to be a different trip. It always is. Why?
Definitely.
Traffic's better, traffic's worse. You have a wreck, you don't have a wreck, you run out of gas. I mean, everything comes from that moment in time. It's like planting the seed. You plant the seed and it starts to grow. So sometimes people look at astrology not just for their birth time, but also for like their time of their wedding. When are we going to start this relationship or our business? When am I going to start this business? So it's like the seed's planted. Now, how is it going to grow? And so that's why a lot of times astrology was one of its big uses was to pick the proper timing for rituals, for ceremonies, for even putting on jewelry and gemstones, right?
Yeah.
Now, for example, if you have a ruby, say you have a ruby, and astrologically they say, well, if you're going to wear a ruby ring, you want to put it on Sunday. So Sunday is the day of the sun, and the sun is the ruby gemstone. So I mean, you can
Okay.
get
Well, that's kind of funny because my wedding ring is a pink sapphire, and you know that is the ruby family.
it is the ruby family,
That's right.
and that's kind of a Leo kind of thing. But let me tell you why you picked that. Now, here's why. Because sapphire, even the pink sapphire, it's still sapphire itself is considered to be a Saturn stone. Because the blue sapphire, the one we think of is a deep, deep blue.
Yeah.
And so that's typically where you would go if you want Saturn energy. Were you married on a Saturday, by the way? Did you get married on a Saturday?
Probably. Yeah.
Most people do.
Yeah.
It's actually a Saturn day, it's Saturday. So, but here's why I think you're maybe drawn toward that. Your moon sign, which is really even more important than your sun sign, is in Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled, owned by Saturn. Now you got that little pink thing to it because I think that keeps it from being quite so difficult and harsh. It gives that pinkness gives that heart energy, that ability to, I guess love, the ability to express love and appreciation. Because solid blue sapphire is kind of a little difficult to express appreciation in your emotions, but the pinkness kind of softens that. So that's
Well,
interesting.
I grew up wearing blue sapphires. It was my favorite stone.
Really, what?
I I was obsessed with sapphires. I even worked at a jeweler and they only sold diamonds, rubies, and sapphires.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of give you a little more hint, your Saturn in your chart is in the area of your career. And it also affects your home and your children. So if you think about that, sapphires in some ways are really good for those three things in your life: your children, your home, and your career. So see, now isn't that interesting that you didn't know that way back when? I don't think.
No,
No, but that's a lot of times we intuitively align with these things. So we kind of know it at some level. We don't know why, or we try to figure it out. But your soul knew. Your soul knew, like, that sapphire. That's kind of for me. That's me, and that's really interesting because I would actually, in your chart too. You say you're there's certain planets and gemstones, but in your chart, by the way, your Libra rising. Your sign of Libra is your rising sign, and this makes you a lover of beauty. Look at the art behind you. You love beauty. You love
I
art.
do.
You love things to be well designed, well presented. This whole idea of beauty and harmony and peace. That's really a big, major part of who you are.
Hmm. It
And
is.
and relationships too. By the
Oh,
way,
yes. And you nailed me earlier because I think besides doing, this like spiritual fun and coaching, I'm a nurturer at my core. I
oh,
love to nurture like plants, people. I love to see them grow and prosper. And, that's just ingrained in me. I told Andre sometimes I really struggle, wanting to, uh, I want to nurture more and kind of be this other person that I never got to be, was just a stay at home mom, relax, sit back, da da da. Instead, I've been this self made entrepreneur, single mom at one point, like the complete opposite. And I'm like, oh, so I've always had to try to find the balance for me because my
that's what
heart
Libra does.
calls.
Libra always tries to find the balance. That's a Libra. Always
Oh,
tries to balance
okay.
it out, And Libras are good at that, except now here's the thing about Libras, and you know this about yourself too. I think I did a reading with you once before, and I told you this. Be really careful about your compromises. Because Libras, they're so desirous, everyone being at peace, everyone being happy, everyone having what everyone needs, that they say, okay, I'll give up what I need so that we keep this balanced peace thing going, And then after,
Definitely.
I'm a little resentful of that. Well, who are you resentful of? Hopefully yourself, because
Myself, but it comes out in other people for sure. You have to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
I'm gonna borrow that from you.
It's an old rap
That's
song.
great advice for a Libra. It's great advice for a Libra because they make wonderful partners until the point they become unhappy in their partnership because they compromise themselves out of their happiness. So that's why it's up to them to make sure they're having to keep the balance here. And I think the other thing about Libras too that I think is fascinating is that they can see two sides of everything. That's why they're
Hmm.
peacemakers. I can see your side of this argument. I can see your side of this argument. Where's the middle ground here? And they're good judges too for that reason. They're very good at seeing that. So now the thing with that can create a challenge is that it's a gift, right? It's a gift to be able to hold two things at once or two people at once.
It is.
The challenge though is, okay, which one? You have to decide. You have to decide. You got these two things. Now it's time for decision on your part. You go, uh-oh, am I going to have spaghetti or am I going to have tacos? I don't know.
That is hard.
Tacos. or jobs or anything.
Anything.
And that's true with all the signs. Every sign has its gifts. Every sign has its challenges. Just like every life has that. So I think with astrology, we try to find out what's the gift of Libra, what's the challenge of Libra, and then you have your moon in Capricorn, for example. This is a great place for the moon for career, but your Capricorn sign is in your house of your home, and home is opposite of career. So there's always at some point in your life there seems to be not a conflict, like what do I choose? Do I choose my home life, my motherhood? Do I choose my career, my public professional life? And Libras think going, I'll do this. Maybe I'll do both at some time. Maybe I'll try to do both. Maybe I'll do this for a while. Maybe I'll do this one for a while. That's what they do. And then your sun comes to rescue because it's in Cancer. It says, my soul wants to nurture. I want to nurture. And so whatever I do, being a mother, being at home, stay at home, being out in the world, helping people, nurturing people, I have to have that nurturing quality to my soul's expression. of Cancer. So, it's I think everyone's chart is so beautiful, and yours is beautiful in the way you've kind of worked out in your life. When you look back on your life, you can see it, how it worked out.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about getting older. If you can stay healthy and happy, getting older is great, and you should hope to get there as quick as you can.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, so when you're doing, when I found astrology back in my, very young 20s, no, I guess you're teens in college, right? So 18, 19, reading it every day.
Yeah.
And you just think that you're going to have this one career,
Mm.
and then your chart changes. I went through a divorce and a move, and then children, and then married and all that stuff, and then you realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm approaching 50, and I technically, if I keep healthy, like you said, healthy and happy, I could live another 50. So does your chart show in there that so I've had two careers, and you can use me as an example, but in general, if we really do stay healthy and happy and we can live another 50 years, how can the chart help us in that next 50 years? I mean, that just seems so overwhelming.
Well, we don't want to get too far because we only have today. We just have today anyway. We just have the present.
That's right.
So you're almost 50. And so a big change for people occurs every 29 and a half years. It's called the Saturn return. And that is a cycle of maturity. So you have your first maturity, right, for most people around 30. That's usually where I'm really grown up now. I can't pretend I'm in my 20s. I can't pretend I'm a kid. I may be a parent by that time. Who knows? Your career, but you have responsibility by 30, usually. Hopefully you do. Then around 60, 59 and a half or 60, there's that second stage of maturity. You're now you're no kidding. You're older. I mean, you're like hopefully you're like the wise, I won't say old, but elder. You're like, you've been around the block twice with Saturn. I've had all the experiences Saturn can teach me twice. Not only once, but twice. I know how this works now. I've been through my relationship stuff at least twice, my career twice. So it's like, I can sit here now with some wisdom and experience I couldn't have had otherwise unless I got to be 60. The third time that happens is at the age of 90, just like you said. 90 is not a problem. And then in the old days, it was 120. In the old days, it says our natural lifespan is 120 years. So by the fourth time you're around, you've done it all so many times you don't need to do it again anymore. So definitely try to get to 90. Who knows? I think many of us living today can get to 120.
Really? You think so?
Absolutely. I think not. Now I'd say maybe younger than you and I are, but those people who are in their 20s or maybe our kids, it's who knows, but a lot of people are projecting that given what the research they're doing with genetic technology, DNA, there's a way to extend this to probably you don't really need to die at some point. You may choose to die, but you may not need to die. So that becomes more important. Like if I'm getting these experiences and I'm going through life, what should I be looking at this next change? Now, that's why the reason I love Vedic astrology, because in Vedic astrology, they tell you at certain years, you're in a planetary period where a planet now becomes very active in your life. And so everything associated with that planet is like, oh, this is more. So let's look at you. Let's look at you. What planet is active in your life right now? Oh no, let me see. This is a very confusing piece of paper.
Oh my.
I
That's
know.
what it looks like?
Yeah, that's one of the pages. I just said you've got.
I'm glad I'm not an astrologist.
Oh, no. Well, you have to have a little bit of Virgo to be an astrologer, I think. But anyway.
Well, do you remember my friend and your student, Rolf, but he said in my chart a long time ago, he's like, in your chart, it's for you to be an astrologer. I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of paperwork.
well, see, that's the thing. The paperwork is like more of a crutch. A really good astrologer, I mean, they can just know a few things. Like I just know that can tell you a lot of things about you. Even knowing just your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising sign, we can have a long conversation. But when you get down to like the nitty gritty, like, oh, good time to take the wedding vows or like change my career, like the timing, that's where it gets a little more complex is timing. The birth chart is just like, that's you your whole life. But things manifest differently depending on your age. So for example, for you at age 42, you began a new period in your life, new stage of your life that lasts until age 61. This time of your life is ruled by Saturn. This is great for you. Saturn is probably your best planet in your chart. Yeah, indeed. For your career, for sure for your career, for your home life, for your children, and for your creativity and education. It's great. I mean, all those things are now And you've got it really going forward to age 60, 61.
61. Okay.
Now, 61 to 78, what really takes over then? This is your Mercury period. This is going to be where you really, I think, achieve recognition, a lot of your goals in life. It's going to be connected to writing, speaking a lot. That's what Mercury's about. A little bit of teaching as well.
Yeah. Communication.
And communities.
Communities.
Larger community. Absolutely. Really big up there. I definitely want to see you when you're 62 years old.
I want to see you too when I'm 62.
I think I'll be around. But the good thing about that is that now you know, it's like, okay, well, this time in my life, I can really manifest these things around the career, around my creativity, around my home life. And as a result of that, when I'm getting ready to move into Mercury at age 62, then I can move into this idea of community building, maybe even being associated with nonprofits or associations or foundations, that type of thing, really good. And then also, and as I said, in your chart, it's also in Leo. You have Venus in Leo, Mars in Leo. That combination, you're going to be a very, I think, powerful and attractive person. When I say attractive, I mean attracting things into your life.
Attracting energy-wise.
Yes, absolutely. And people into your life and moving forward in some kind of, it's a group energy. It's a group collective energy that you'll be working with a lot in that time in your life.
I love that. That makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, and I think that to me, that's the point of astrology is when you're reminded of who you are and what you're here to be, there's a sense of deep satisfaction and relief, almost like, oh, thank goodness.
I'm doing something right.
Right. And so even, and it's, now listen, this is kind of it's like a weather report sometime. When I look at your chart, I can say, Lillian, at age 62, there is sunshine, or what do you want to call it? There is fair weather. But listen, Lillian, you can stay home on your couch and watch soap operas. There's still sunshine outside, but you're not doing anything about it. So it doesn't take away free will or the consciousness engagement of change. It just means if you want to realize this, you want to exert this way, the weather supports you completely in doing so. And I think that's what's really a good reminder for people, because sometimes people think, well, day in, day out, how's it going to change? My dream is this, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe I should just stay and do this, or maybe I should stay in this relationship. I know it's not going to work out, but I'm just here. Things like that happen to people. And then you realize like, oh, wait a minute, there is actually something here that you've planned. And I think that's what astrology is good at doing. There's a very good plan. You have a perfect curriculum to graduate if you do the lessons. Most of us don't do them all quite right because we're here again.
We're human.
But yeah, we are human, but we're also divine. And I think part of the humanity is to be divine without losing your humanity.
And to connect to the divine. I mean, do you feel like this is really astrology as a way to connect to the divine and for you to live out your divine purpose?
I firmly think that. That's fine. Now, there are other methods besides astrology. It just happens to be one of the oldest methods and the most studied method. And that's why you can use many other things. I mean, really, if you have that ability to tap in to that part of yourself and other people. But, people look at they look at palms. Think about this. Before we had computers, we used to have books, and people look up in books about astrology, and then they would try to do your astrology based on what was in some ephemeris. I do a computer program now, but what did they use a long time ago?
Yeah, before the book, because I learned from a blue book about this thick. Yeah. And I scoured it front to back, and I'm a self-taught astrologist.
Absolutely. No, that was true. That's great. Basically, astrology is just a conduit for your intuition. You already know everything. You really do. We know everything. We have to be reminded we know everything. And you can't learn what you don't already know. Now, that sounds paradoxical, but everything, all the knowledge that's not only outside you, it's also inside you. What astrology does, it uses things outside yourself to awaken knowledge inside yourself. When I'm looking at a chart, it's so complicated. Like you said, there's just literally thousands and thousands of things any one thing could mean in a chart. I mean, you could interpret in so many different ways. That's why what you're really doing, you're tapping into that intuitive, what do you want to call it, the overmind or whatever. You're pulling things out and allowing it to be expressed. So I'm not saying it's like, you call it psychic if you like. I just frankly think it's just a way, I say intuiting means that you find the inner knowledge that you're looking outside for. So when I'm talking to you and I see that stuff so for example, I said you can have a Saturn's in your career area, a bad astrologer. And by the way, I want to tell you, there's no bad astrology. There's no bad birth charts. There's only bad astrologers.
Okay.
It's right. No, I know that.
I believe you.
I know, because I've seen what can happen when someone looks at a chart. I'll say bad. That's probably not the right word, but they're more concerned with impressing you with what they think they know.
Yes.
And they
Instead
try,
of actually telling you what's on your chart, I've had ones like that.
yeah, and they create anxiety sometimes. Like for
Yeah.
if I was a battle astrologer, like, God, Lillian, you have Saturn in your career chart. It means it's gonna be very hard to find a
Right.
career. And it's gonna have a lot of hardship around it. You probably won't make a lot of money because it's Saturn. It's just not, and it's with the sun, which they don't like each other. So your boss is gonna hate you. Now, you could interpret it that way, which is crazy,
Yes.
but see, I'm looking at this whole chart. Also, importantly, I'm looking at you. I'm with you. That's why, when you have an astrology reading, it doesn't work. I mean, it's okay. I'm done with the newspapers, horoscopes. I'm glad we can, look online, but it really is a very personal thing. And having that relationship with another individual who can see something and confirm it, because most of us don't have the capacity a lot of times to confirm what we're trying to see. We don't.
Yeah.
We're looking for, like you said, looking for someone else to confirm it. And that's what a good astrologer can do. They can see what needs to be confirmed and tell you, remind you. You go, oh, thank you. I've been looking all over for this confirmation. It's not like they're, predicting something. They're just seeing what's already there and reminding you that it's already there. Like your future is already here,
Yeah. It's already here.
that present and future is all here. So that's what I said about you in your 60s, why that's there. You already, when I said it to you, you knew that. You felt it, or you at least hoped it.
And I know I can feel that Saturn's in my chart, just like you said.
Yeah, you can feel that
You know,
too.
I can feel it because I've been embodying it for 2 years with some very hard symptoms. Like I've had tons of joint pain. I've had lots of body aches. I've had dislocated my shoulder. I think I told you that 2 years ago. That was the start
Right.
of, I think, Saturn in my chart because it has made me relook at my entire business, my life, my children, my relationship with my husband, and in a good way, not in a bad way. And so that was 2 years ago for March.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 years ago from March. Yeah, that was actually, you were in that first period of Saturn. Yep, Saturn. Yeah, but that was actually starting to come. It's coming on you, right? Coming over you. Especially joint problems. That's very Saturn. Structural problems, very Saturn 9, like that. And what Saturn is doing is saying there's some lessons you have to learn about all these areas, about your health, about your family, about your
Yeah.
relationship. There's lessons to be learned here, and they're hard lessons. But if you learn them, boy, do you really get the prize. And fortunately for you, I mean, like I said, Saturn is a really good friend for you. And if I saw that in your chart, I interpret Saturn differently for you than I might for someone else because there's so many pieces there. It's not just like one thing and you look it up on what's my sun sign. I mean, the sun sign is helpful but it's really it's such a teeny piece of
It's a
everything.
tiny piece. Yeah.
And unfortunately, some people try to live up to the sun sign. It may not be what's really required. They think, oh, I'm just Virgo. I'm always going to criticize everybody. I'm self-critical, but they don't see the other parts that are there that balance that out, that make it a gift rather than a drawback.
Yeah. And I think if you focus on if you focus on just the Leos out there that, want the stage and want attention, and that's not me. I like a smaller stage like this with you. I may get to the bigger stages but then sometimes I'm like, oh, I like my little stage over here. This is good. So
Yeah,
it's like, I don't embody all of the Leo characteristics either. I embody a lot, but I think embody is a good word
yeah,
because when someone gives you information like like if you're giving information to me, you're giving information to, our listeners.
yeah,
So I feel like sometimes what gets in the way is fear or questioning. They want to know the outcome before it's even here. Like, I
yeah.
want to know that I'm going to be good on a stage 10 years from now when I'm like, I'm still like doing my jam over here. Why do I
Yeah.
need to know that?
Absolutely. People say, I want you to tell me when I'm going to get married. That's all I want to know. When am I going to get married? Well, obviously, hopefully you get married when you're actually ready to get married. And it's like you said,
Yes, in love, ready for challenges and hardships and all the good and all the bad.
yeah,
That's when
yeah,
you're getting married.
yeah, and that's true because otherwise, what happens? People try to make something happen.
Yeah.
It's like it's like having a baby. It's like, okay, here I am, 38 years old. Oh, I'm not married even. Oh man, I want that baby. I need to have a baby. I gotta get married to have a baby. And then this becomes it's a blinder, and then everyone you see like possible baby maker. It's like and you're like all the other stuff that but what if I tell people this sometimes, said, okay, there's a perfect person for you to be with. Absolutely just perfect. What do you want to call it? Say double flame,
Yeah.
whatever words you want to use,
Yeah.
whatever words you want to think about, knight in shining, whatever, perfect, perfect. And I said, are you willing to wait for that person? And they say, yes. And I don't need to tell you when, because if you're willing to wait for that person, you'll wait till they're there, and they will be there. Because that's part of the plan. But if you jump in front of it and say, no, I'm not going to wait 5 years. I'm first hell not going to wait 20 years. I'm going to do something tomorrow. Well, go ahead. You'll find out something about that, and they'll move you forward anyway. It's not like wasted time. This idea that it's predictive or that it's a done deal is a false, because we have free will. Every breath we take, we can choose to experience it in a different way. So hopefully astrology allows you to be open to experiencing how life is changing moment to moment, because everything's moving. The moon is moving. The moon is changing. Sun's going from Leo to Virgo. Everything's changing. So why do you think you can stop it and say, this is going to happen? And I can tell, for example, if I can look at your chart here and say, okay, right now, just to say, play with this a little bit here. Here's a prediction I'll make for you. It's not a prediction, but it's more like opportunity. In about 2.5 to 3 years from now, you will have successfully reformed this new sense of self that you began about 5 years ago. And that was really about way back, back then. You've been working the last 5 years very diligently to kind of, once they reinvent, I don't mean the old stuff was bad, but to really look at your career, look at your relationships, look at your family, look at your spiritual path, and determine which of these 4 things, or all of these, am I willing to change and grow with, so that in this time that is coming up in 2.5 years, you will have felt like you will know I've done the work that's required there. And this is the time I'm talking about. In astrology, it happens every 30 years, not based on your age, not because you're a certain age, but based on your moon sign. So you did this, if you can think back in your life, say 30 years ago, plus 2.5 years. So think back 33 years ago. That was when you kind of came out of that first part of a life that you kind of started to change. And then at 33, you kind of began, am I right about the dates? I get trouble with my mind doing subtraction. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're close.
Okay, close. Okay.
Yeah, so 30 plus. So if you take me back, I'm starting at 15, 16. Okay. And then you're saying 30 years on top of that.
Yeah.
I'm 45. Yeah. And I'm 48 right now. That's right. And you said 3 years to begin. So you're right on track.
So what does that mean? Basically, what it means is like, oh, don't be worried about it. It's like, am I behind schedule? No, be patient with this process, because whatever you're doing now, it's going to come to this manifestation in about 3 years, 3 to 5 years, because it's not like a day. But now it's like, okay, I'm in this new place, new sense of who I am, what I'm going to be doing. Sometimes you'll see people, maybe their kids have grown up by that time, maybe they've changed their career by that time, maybe their partner has gone through a different change, maybe changing their family somewhere else with parents and grandkids or whatever. The career obviously will probably have changed. It's that everything is moving towards something. So a lot of times people feel a lot of intense change during certain times. They think, wow, I just wish something would slow down. Think, well, this is the time everything changes, and that's okay. Be with that, because this is what you're moving toward. So I think giving people that sign on the road, like, it's like they say, Dallas, 55 miles. It's like, okay, I'll be in Dallas in 55 miles. I can hold it. I can keep going.
Yeah. But I mean, do you think that like the astrology, like I'm just going to use me as an example.
Well, of course.
But I feel like sometimes I get into this spot where I'm working really hard and I feel like, my relationship's good, my kids are good, I'm good. And then I get into this silence with myself. And I know not everybody does this, but I do this. And then in the silence factor, I'm like, and and I always use my intuition because I teach intuition. So you know that about me. But when I'm by myself, I've started giving myself my own personal readings, because I find that I start to get antsy and I either want to reach out to someone like you and tell me what I need to do, and that I'm on the right track,
Right.
Or I give myself a reading and then I'm like, I get lots of good advice.
Yeah.
But for people that maybe don't take that silence as a good thing, right? Do you suggest that, they reach out to you and do, some kind of reading, or do they sit with themselves and let their intuition come in and tell them to do what, at that fork in the road, what do you recommend?
Absolutely. And I joke when I say this, but I'm just saying, if everybody had perfect intuition, I would not have a job. No, they would. But the thing is, we oftentimes don't trust it. or we're afraid, or we're anxious, and we don't want to even listen to it. We already have a plan that we think we have to stick to. And so intuition has its voice can't be heard. That's why it says silent. It's actually a great way to put it. And, as I said, we do know everything. We know what we're supposed to be doing, but our fear, our programming, our distractions, and I think a lot of it is distractions. So that's
I
why
agree.
it's more like, I think, meditation. It's not necessarily formal meditation, but self-reflection. What it really comes down to, and this is what I'm learning as I get older, and I love getting older because I'm kind of figuring this out. If you're fully embodied in the present moment, like we are right now having this conversation, everything goes right.
Yes.
You can't make a bad choice. You're driving down the road, you'll know, oh, I don't know why, but I'm going to turn here. You don't like to talk about intuition. It's just like there's a knowing that you're allowed to express itself. But you can only do that if you get out of the past and get out of the future. For one thing, they don't exist. But when you're coming from the past, you got a bad program. You come to the future, it's all hopes and anxieties. That's why if you can find a way to be fully present in the moment with yourself, all the answers are always there. So that's when you say, I think silence is a great way to get there. Of course, the mind's so busy, you have to maybe use breath work, but that's a good way to do it. Maybe some sound, like I use, gongs, or maybe even just mantra. That's a good way to get present like that. Just mindfulness of watching oneself, observing yourself consciously. Oh, here I am washing dishes again by myself on a Thursday night and feeling lonely. Let's look at that person who's doing that. Just look at that person with compassion who's doing that thing and see what they need, rather than thinking I'm all involved in this moment of my own suffering and anxiety. It's like you can always step up here from the balcony and look down at yourself with compassion. And when you do that, a lot of the answers will say, "Oh, you're ready to be told the answer."
Yeah. And, I was just saying, to myself the other day, and then Deepak reminded me this morning again, but whenever we're feeling in that lonely spot, or that spot where, oh my gosh, am I on the right path? Or, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? It's like, just sit there in gratitude for the moment, like that you even have hot water to do your dishes, and you have AC in your house so that you're cool doing your dishes. And I have clean water to drink while I'm doing my dishes.
And ultimately, you have a body.
And we have a body.
You have a life. You have a breath. As long as you have that breath, everything's possible. The next breath makes everything possible. You're a wealth of possibilities, and be grateful for that. And I think sometimes this is human nature. I think also programming and culturally and family and so many things we have to break through. But I think that silence thing and just deeply listening and observing, witnessing is a good way to start. And sometimes you do need help. Sometimes you do need to talk to someone who says, look, here's something you might want to consider. You have this great ability to counsel people. Why don't you just get a job? Why don't you start to become a counselor?
Yeah, go back to school.
You go to school, do it. I mean,
Go to school.
I want to, but I was just afraid maybe I couldn't do it. Maybe I'm not supposed to do it. Can I do it? My family wouldn't understand why I'm doing it. It's like, wait, this.
Doesn't matter, right? And yeah, and I love that. Like, and I have two big questions for you, because I think this is important too. But I think I love how you have to remember to remove everyone else out of your decision making, because that influences your decision. And I'm talking about if you're an adult, if you're a kid and you need role models and this and that, okay, that's one thing. But even the kids, they know the answer
Right.
too before they ask. Like,
they do.
they do.
They're wise. They're old souls. They're just in a young body.
Yeah. So, okay. So I said this to someone else the other day. Okay. So I make, abundance spray. Okay. Money spray. And I'm going to show you. So it looks like that. Okay.
Yeah.
And this time, just for fun, I asked people to give me their personal intentions for the spray so that I could infuse them after I do my stuff, and then I can add their stuff, and then we can have a combo plan, right? Instead of it just being all my. So 3 or 4 people asked for large dollar amounts. They want the lottery. They want the divine to just bring them lots of money. They want to make lots of money working. So can you tell that in charts?
Well, about this idea, yeah, there's an impulse that they judge their happiness by their financial success, and it's a fallacy. I mean, we know that's not true.
Right.
People think it's true. People think if I had a lot of money, I'd be happy. No, you won't. You'll be the same person. You just have a lot of money, and you'll have a different set of problems.
Right.
You'll have problems that just are different than the money problems. If it doesn't, money never solves problems. And maybe now, having said that, we like to have enough to eat. We like to have safe places, all that good stuff. Absolutely. But I think when you're saying we need to decide, I would qualify that by saying we need to decide what makes us happy. Yeah, and not the false sense of happiness other people tell us, like, oh, it's the money thing, or it's a relationship thing. If I had this partner, I'd be happy. Let me tell you something. You're not gonna have a partner until you are happy.
That's true.
You're not gonna make money until you feel happy about making the money.
True.
So it's like, well, so I do agree fully, completely that, you decide, no one else decides for you what makes you happy, and then pursue it like it's everything.
Now,
And
can you help them find their happiness on the chart? Because there's a lot of people that are just kind of now with all the distractions, there's so many choices to do now, right? It's like, do I start a business? Do I start another business? Do I need 3 streams of income? Do I need 5 streams of income? Right?
yeah, especially if you're a Gemini, you need 3 streams, of course, yeah.
Yes.
Well, but what I think what we can do, when you look at a chart and say, let me just tell you what your gifts are. These are your gifts. And I can look at a chart and say, wow, you have a great gift for healing and for client-based work. People saying, yeah, I guess I could do that, couldn't I? Yeah, you really could. And that would make you happy. It would make me happy. Well, then that can happen. But they come and say, I want to be a lawyer because I know they make a lot of money. Look at the chart and say, doesn't look really good to be a lawyer. I mean, no, I think you could be a great chef. You go, that's hard work. Doesn't make you, then maybe feed other people. Maybe you do a food pantry. I don't know, but you have a great interview on food. And they think, yeah, I do, but I don't know if I'm making. I said, you'll be successful what you do if you're happy and you're aligned with it. Successful fight and success is happiness. It's all the guideline for success is happiness.
But do you feel like if, okay, so like my daughter right now, she's so funny, she's 18 and she said, Mom, I need a 5-year plan. And I was like, you need a month plan, a 1-month plan. It's called supplements, rest, meditation, therapy, fun. You need a 1-month plan. Anyway, we're joking about that. But do you help old souls that are also children, but that are adult children? It's like there are children, but I find this age to be where they, it's kind of like you said, they're living in the future, which is no such thing.
Yeah.
So they need to come back to the present. But can you help them with their chart, like maybe develop some kind of, like you said, share their gifts with them?
Well, I think so. And then also when you see the chart, like 5 years from now, this looks like a very great possibility for you. Like this is for the career start, da, da, da. And what this will teach people is patience. Like a lot of people start off in a job, I'm 22 years old. I need to be successful. I get this fast-paced track job. I have to do all this stuff I don't like to do, but I'm behind. You look at careers that really take off to your 30s. You go, oh my God. And they go, what am I going to do? They say, well, it doesn't mean you don't do anything. It means that you're very patient with yourself and with the process of what's happening. You may go down a career path in 2 years, but you may feel like this is not where I want to be. This is not a 5-year plan. It was at best a 2-year plan. It might have been, like you say, a 1-month plan, a 1-day plan. But that's what I mean. This idea of planning gives us a sense of control, of which we really have none. Now we can control how we react. But you can't say 5 years from now, I'm going to react this way and I'll be this person. Now, I think I tell people, don't worry about the destination, get clear about the direction.
Love that.
Yeah,
Do you help them with that? Like with the direction? Because a lot of, my earlier questions were like to, mentors and spiritual teachers were, am I on the right path?
Yeah. And I think what you do is, again, how do you give directions? Well, first of all, you find out, like, where do you think you want to go? And say, well, I want to go to San Francisco. I said, well, maybe you might want to start heading west. That's true. I can definitely say that to you. And if you're heading west, that means you're going to have to be skillful at say, driving. Oh, you got a great chart for driving. You could get there, I think. But you also have a good chart for taking some time off and being in nature. Maybe get to Yosemite and say, yeah, I'm in Yosemite Park. I'm going to be a park ranger. Here's who I want to be. But unless you thought you were going to San Francisco, you would never got to Yosemite. So what I was saying about being that direction is really important, and having a directed life is important. But it has to be your self-direction. It can't be someone else telling you should be a lawyer. It should be like, I've always been really good being an advocate. I've always liked advocating for people who need, like, the underdog. I feel like I get justice for people. Okay, that gets me in a direction. You want to live a life where you see that, higher things are served. People get what they deserve in their life. So that puts you in a position to do something. Maybe not a lawyer. Maybe you're a therapist. That's also the same thing. So I think what the chart can tell you is, first of all, your natural gifts, your challenges around the gifts you have in using them. That's why you have the gifts. Every challenge has a gift. Every gift has a challenge.
Yes.
Also, this idea of timing. Because I think for a lot of people, if they can relax, knowing that there is a destiny here in my life that I came to fulfill, I can wait for it. If I tell people you are a great teacher in your chart, that you got the most amazing chart I've seen for a teacher or a counselor, and they say, well, yeah, I don't know, I don't really feel that yet. I don't know. Maybe I'm just gonna wait tables for a while, and all of a sudden they find that in that job they're in, something opens up for them. Like they talk to someone, and all of a sudden you had an encounter by waiting tables that puts them on this track to be whatever it is they want to do. So how we get to a place is so unknown to us. There's so many ways to get there. If we think we have to go down a certain path, it has to be on a certain timeline, we're going to be disappointed and frustrated. And it doesn't mean you can't have a direction, but the destination it's to be determined by yourself, and you can't do it until you actually are in that time. So the one thing I'm telling people a lot of, and I've learned this myself, the best thing about getting older is that you're okay slowing down, you're okay being patient. Because if you want to do something really badly, wait at least 1 day, maybe wait 2 days, maybe wait 3 days, see if it's still there. Even if you want to buy something, go online, oh, I want that. Go back tomorrow or a week from now, see what you feel. But a lot of times in the moment, we feel something we're lacking. We have to take an action that's not really appropriate. We just do something, we buy something, or we date somebody, we do something just because I got to take an action. But sometimes the action is like, just wait, be present, be fulfilled in the moment, and don't feel like you're lacking it. Then you don't make mistakes. So many people tell me that, I married this person. Why? Because I don't know. I was getting older. I wanted this happen, and I need security, and got married, and it was horrible. Yeah, okay. Well, it's part of the learning process too. Now you learn to wait next time.
Yeah,
But
and
maybe
you
you
learn
don't.
to follow your intuition instead of just like for me, I just lived in my masculine. I was like, I'm getting married, I'm gonna have a house, I'm gonna have 4 kids, I'm gonna have
Yeah,
this, I'm gonna have that. I was just like the driver of my ship,
that's right.
and no one else mattered. It was just my ship.
Yeah. Okay. It's great. That's what I'm saying. Lovely getting older. Let's all keep doing it.
Yeah, let's do it. And then, okay, so I have one more question for you. I
Yeah.
know we're closing on time, but love talking to you. So obviously you're going to have to come back and teach us all about the gong and then all about yoga. I mean, I have 1,000 more questions. Okay, but how do you help people in their chart with the sense of making money right now and manifesting money? And I'm in a different stage of my life, but I have been in that stage for a very long time. And I think that's what happened when I ripped out my shoulder is I have an entirely different perspective on money now. And
Patience too, right? You got to be very patient with that shoulder. It really,
yes. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Yes. It changed everything. It changed my mindset. It changed my body. It changed my friends. It changed my clients. It changed all of it. But when someone hears in their chart, and you can use me as an example if you want, but let's say they want to be a teacher. And teachers, let's say they only make $35,000 a year now. Okay. And you're like, oh, your chart is so filled with being a teacher. And then they immediately go, well, how am I going to afford to live? Right. And how am I going to do this? What do you recommend for that? Because there's so much instant gratification now that we see that we know is not real, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
how do you tell someone that's young or that's maybe reinventing themselves? Because I have a lot of women clients that are reinventing themselves,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And that means career for so many people, right? But
For
I think
so much, but also just like loving themselves, like reinventing how they love themselves, because we were taught from a patriarchal system, and you were the one that really brought that into my life differently when I went through Kundalini Yoga training with you, is that it was the Piscean age was over and the Aquarian age is now, right?
yeah, right.
So it's more femininity, it's more self-love, it's all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just a few. I'll try to answer that. It's a great question. I'll give a few answers. First of all, this idea of money and prosperity again, it's a false destination. Now you may be rewarded. You're rewarded when you are who you are in your most elegant, beautiful self. You'll be happy. You'll have prosperity. You'll have lots of friends. You'll have family that supports you. It's not just money. It's not. Now people think that money is an excuse for most of us. I say it's an excuse. I don't have enough money to do that. That's the excuse we offer because we think it's valid. I don't have enough time to do that. It's the time and money thing. So I tell people that first of all, and it seems very trite, but until you're happy, but this is going to happen anyway. So you have to do what makes you happy. And if you think, well, I can't make $100,000 doing this, but I sure as heck am happy doing this. It's okay. Well, be happy for a while and see what comes to you. Be patient with the process of being happy. You're going to find all of a sudden you make connections you could have never made without being happy, doing what you love. People come into your life you can never imagine. Things open up, a door opens you can never thought would be there to walk through. It's trusting your own inner journey, that my journey is to do this what my heart longs to do, and to sense of self, and drop the fear around it. Are you going to start the on the street? Probably not. We get to go to Mexico? Maybe not. We get to buy new clothes? Maybe not so much. But the point is, if you're truly able to find that sweet spot where you wake up every day, you're happy for the day, you're doing what you love in that day, you're around people you like to be around. People will call you one of the richest people in the world. Now,
Yes.
I'm not trying to be clever and redefine prosperity, but I'm just saying, if you only define your lack of success because you don't have money, you're never going to be successful, because money comes and money goes. That's how much
Yeah.
people have a lot of money, spend a lot of money.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. The more money you make, the more you spend. At least that's my game.
I've never met a person. Well, I have enough money now. I have too much money. The billionaires don't say that. That's why we have billionaires, because they don't.
Yeah.
Because so I'm telling people now, when you look at your chart, I say, look, here are your gifts. This is what's going to make you happy. Because there are things that in your chart make you happy. I mean, for you, like I said, what makes you happy is nurturing, being creative. That's very, that's big. If you're not doing something then that could be just being a mom staying at home. That could be that person. Could be. But if you'd feel a calling for something else, like for teaching, you have to step outside of that, that's something else. So I do think that one of the things is, like you said, that idea of pausing in silence and just really being honest with yourself. Why am I not happy? That's the question. And not why I'm not successful, why I'm not prosperous. That's a false question.
Okay. That's good advice. Yeah.
Why am I not happy? And once you figure that out, then everything else is going to fall right into place. The right person, the right job, everything comes to that. Happiness is the strongest attractive quality you can have. I would never want to be married to someone who wasn't happy. I mean, not are capable of being happy,
Right. Right.
And for that, you have to be happy yourself. Someone who's happy is not going to marry someone who's just a grouch. I hope they don't.
Oh, a lot of people, I
They
think
do, don't
marry
they?
the opposite because, well, at least I can only speak for me. I was a fixer for so long,
That was yes. And listen, you're still a fixer, but you're doing it in a healthy way now.
Yeah. Thank you.
You are. And I don't mean you're fixing people, because you're more than a fixer. You're actually a facilitator. You just want to make people better, and you like the project to work on. And you sure got a project to work on, didn't you? Right? Yeah, there's lots to fix here.
Yeah, and I'm a project now. I used to fix others and forget about myself. Like you said, I was out of balance. And now I spend more time in the morning making sure I'm okay so that I have more love and attention to give.
And you're happier than you were before. Aren't you? Now, be honest. Aren't you probably the happiest right now than you ever been in your life?
Definitely.
Okay, that's all.
Definitely.
That's it right there. You're successful.
Yeah, but don't you think it's kind of funny that it takes, I mean, I laugh about this all the time. Okay. It takes more self-care to get there to the happiness factor than
Yeah.
ever. I
Well,
find myself yesterday on Memorial Day, it was like, okay, I've meditated. I've Tesla lighted. I've been out in the sun. I've walked the dogs. I've cleaned up. I've done all this self-care. It's noon. I'm like, what have I been doing for 4 hours? Oh, self-caring.
self-caring. Well, and it is truly to love yourself. Until you love yourself, nothing's going to happen or change. And you have to the most precious thing you take care of is yourself. Otherwise, you can't take care of anyone else.
Yeah.
I don't speak from experience, obviously, but as a parent or as a mother or a father, if you don't take care of yourself, you really can't take care of your children. Do your
Well,
best.
and you're right. And afternoon, after I finished all my self-care, I was 100% available for anyone that needed me. Any question, I could be present. I had, my mom over. It's like we could talk, have sit-down dinner. If I don't do that, I find that I'm just thinking about something else over in left field,
I'm going to leave you then with one further suggestion or answer to a question. What do you do to make this shift happen? And here's my answer. And I've done it for over 50 years, so I know it works. Before you start your day, before you leave your bedroom or your house, you take at least 15 minutes or as much as you can to take care of yourself. Self-reflection, self-study, appreciation, gratitude, prayer, inspiration, whatever form it takes for you. Start your day like that before you do anything else, before you even have your breakfast or take care of the kids or whatever you have to do. Give 15 minutes more. Take that precious time to set the day, and then you'll be surprised at what happens throughout the rest of the day and throughout the rest of your life. That's really it. It's as simple as that. That early morning attention, self-care, practice, whatever words you want to call it. We call it sadhana in Kundalini Yoga. Nothing's going to work without that. I know from experience, from myself and many, many people, Unless you have that daily, and I mean daily, I mean every day of your life, no matter what happened, your dog died, I don't care. You have 15 minutes to yourself, then go bury your dog.
Yeah.
You know,
You're
so
right. You're
so
right,
that's
because we don't get a pass on not having the stressful or traumatizing things in our life. We don't get a pass. No one gets a pass.
no.
Everybody has death, everybody has birth, and it's just we do have to take that. I do a minimum of 15 minutes. But I find with my age I have to do more.
Yeah. I think for me, an hour works for me. Now, for
Yeah.
some people can get done in 5 or 10 minutes, maybe. But honestly, the trick here is daily, because you change every day so much. You're carrying around the old stuff. It's like taking a shower for a week. Can you imagine not taking a shower for a week? Well, your mind
No.
gets so dirty and nasty, your emotions get so clogged up. Why wouldn't you
Yes.
every day? Anyway,
Okay. I love that. Okay, so we will have to have you back, Yogi Mehtab, but for Gong and Yoga. So 2 more episodes. Are you down for that?
I love it. Listen, I want to mention to people, I do have a meditation online. It's a gift for them. It's called the Joyful Heart Meditation. And it takes about, maybe 5, 10, 11 minutes. And I use the gong. You use some really beautiful heart mudra, and you're with that. And just allow that to maybe be a way to reset yourself. Yeah, it's free off my website. We'll find a way to connect you with it. But that's
Tell
what
us your website.
it's Yogi Mehtab, Mehtab, YogiMehtab.com. Mehtab is a spiritual name of reflected moonlight. It's like moonlight on one. It's a soft way to bring light, which I like. So
And then you don't you have a free guide for the astrology part of it too?
I do. Thank you. I like that even better. What's your Vedic sun sign? Because I will guarantee for 4 out of 5 people who are listening, your sun sign is going to change probably backwards from what you think it is. And you can find out exactly if you go to my website. This little freebie thing takes maybe 5 minutes to look up what your Vedic sun sign is. And then based on that sun sign, it may be different than your Western sun sign. You can read a little bit about what that means for you. So I think it's kind of silly, little horoscopes, but it does work to get you started. So read that few lines about, for example, your Vedic sun sign is Cancer, as we talked about. Read what it means to have a Vedic sun sign that's Cancer. And
Okay.
I think it helps you reset your expectations for yourself and how you see yourself and how others may see you. It's a good start, and it's just free. It's a fun way to do it. And if you love it, happy to sit with you for an hour or so or more and kind of go through your chart and kind
And
of
so do you do private consultations too for
I,
astrology?
that's usually what I do. Yeah, I do a lot of that, and I love doing it because it gives us a chance to really, I think, create change quickly. You can have you can say something to someone that need to be said for. I just remember just this last week, I was talking to a woman, and I just saw her. So I said, I can tell you were never good enough to satisfy your father's expectations, and she started crying. Yeah, that's true, and that was the root.
Oh,
That's just the root. I didn't say it in a cruel way, but there's a thing in the chart. When you see it in the chart, you know that people have a lack of self-confidence, and they just feel so underappreciated by maybe their father. So, or you see maybe, oh, your mother was really absent in your life. She really wasn't with you emotionally. You go, yeah. And when you tell someone like that, it gives a different meaning to it. It's like, well, if you can see that, that means that's the way, I don't say it's supposed to be, but that's the way it was. What do I do with that?
yeah.
You said it, like you said earlier. Anyway,
I
love to
love
do
that. Okay, well, will you give us a satnam for closing?
it.
Either 3 times, one time, or your favorite way?
One time is good for me. And when we say this, remember what it says. This is true identity, true self. And this is what astrology is about. How do you really recognize and connect with your true self again? Not the self that was made for you by other people or that you actually made on yourself, the true self that's always eternal. So hands as ever you like them, true self, and inhale.
I love that because it just feels like when I remember in class, you just said, just show up with your true self, whatever it may be in the moment. You're
Yeah,
going to be your true self for the short time we have together. And then you practice being in your true self longer and longer and longer as you live.
yeah, it's so true. It's a gift. It's a gift. All right, Sadnam, everyone. Listen, Lillian, thank you very much for all the time we've had together in the past. And today was really a joy for me too.
Thank you. I had so much fun. Thank you. You're such a gift. It's your gift. And I'll be calling you soon for another one.
Thank you, Lillian.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye bye. Bye bye.